The first warning came at 0347 hours, Pacific Standard Time. Commander Sarah Chen was drinking her third cup of coffee in the NORAD Command Center when every screen in the facility turned red. "Multiple contacts, ma'am," Sergeant Williams called out, his voice tight with controlled panic. "They're coming from everywhere at once." Sarah set down her mug and walked to the main display. What she saw there defied everything humanity thought they knew about space travel. Hundreds of ships, each the size of a city block, had appeared in Earth's atmosphere without any warning. No heat signatures during entry, no radar detection. They simply materialized like ghosts, becoming solid. "Get me the president," Sarah ordered, "and contact every military base on the planet. Code Black. This is not a drill." The ships hung in the sky like dark clouds over major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, every major population center now had a massive alien vessel hovering 2 kilometers above it. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, smooth black surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, the base's chief scientist, hurried into the command center carrying a tablet. "Commander, we're picking up some kind of broadcast. Universal Translator is working on it." "Put it through the speakers," Sarah commanded. Static filled the room, then cleared into a voice that sounded like grinding metal mixed with the whisper of wind through dead leaves. "People of Earth, you have been selected for harvesting. Your species shows promise as a labor force. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make examples of your cities. You have one of your time units called hours to decide." The transmission ended, leaving only silence in the command center. "1 hour?" Sergeant Williams asked. "That's it?" Sarah was already moving. "Williams, get me a direct line to every world leader. Hawthorne, I need everything you can tell me about those ships. Rodriguez, start pulling up our response protocols." "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "we don't have protocols for this." "Then we make them up as we go." Within minutes, Sarah was on a conference call with leaders from every major nation. The conversation was chaos at first, everyone talking at once, some in languages the translators couldn't keep up with. Finally, the president's voice cut through the noise. "Commander Chen, what are our military options?" Sarah looked at the data streaming across her screens. "Sir, we have naval fleets, air forces, and ground troops ready to mobilize. But these ships, they're using technology we don't understand. Our preliminary scans show energy signatures unlike anything in our databases." "What about nuclear weapons?" asked the British Prime Minister. Dr. Hawthorne shook her head, even though the leaders couldn't see her. "Based on the energy readings, I don't think conventional nuclear weapons would penetrate those hulls. We're looking at materials that might be denser than anything on Earth." The Russian president's voice crackled through the speakers. "So we do nothing? We surrender to creatures we have never seen?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "We fight, but we fight smart." The hour passed quickly, too quickly. Sarah watched the countdown on her main screen. Woro 05, 23, 005, 22, 005, 21. When it reached 0, the ships moved. The first attack came over Los Angeles. A beam of green light, thin as a pencil but bright as the sun, lanced down from the alien ship. Where it touched the ground, everything simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, just gone, leaving a perfectly circular hole 30 meters wide and impossibly deep. "Jesus Christ," Williams whispered. More beams struck around the world, always the same, thin, precise, leaving holes that seemed to go down forever. The message was clear. The aliens could delete anything they wanted with surgical precision. But something strange happened next. The beams stopped. The ships just hovered there, waiting. Sarah's communication board lit up with reports from around the globe. Military bases were reporting in, asking for orders. The aliens had made their demonstration, but they weren't following through with massive destruction. "They're testing us," Dr. Hawthorne said suddenly. "Look at the pattern of strikes. They hit empty areas near major cities, close enough to terrify everyone, but not actually causing mass casualties." "Why would they do that?" Sarah asked. "Because they want us afraid, but they still need us alive. They called us a labor force, remember? You can't harvest dead workers." Sarah felt something click in her mind. These aliens might have superior technology, but they were making assumptions about human nature. They assumed fear would lead to surrender. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first human response came from an unexpected source. Captain Mike Hammer Rodriguez of the USS Michigan, a nuclear submarine currently patrolling the Pacific, radioed in with a report that changed everything. "NORAD, this is Michigan. We have eyes on one of those alien ships through our periscope. The vessel appears to be maintaining position through some kind of gravitational field, but here's the interesting part. It's stable. No movement, no evasive maneuvers. It's just sitting there like a sitting duck." Sarah grabbed the radio. "Michigan, this is Chen. Are you saying the ship is vulnerable?" "Ma'am, I'm saying it's not acting like any military vessel I've ever seen. No defensive patterns, no scanning behaviors. It's like they think nothing on Earth can threaten them." That was the first mistake the aliens made, underestimating human ingenuity. Within 2 hours of the initial attack, military forces around the world began moving, not in panic, not in random retaliation, but with careful, coordinated precision that the aliens clearly didn't expect. The first real engagement came over the North Sea. British Royal Navy ships, positioned beneath one of the alien vessels, launched a coordinated missile strike. Not nuclear missiles, those would be held in reserve. Instead, they used conventional cruise missiles loaded with every type of experimental warhead they had. The missiles rose from the gray waters like angry birds of prey. The alien ship's response was immediate. Green beams lanced down, destroying most of the missiles in flight. But not all of them. 3 missiles made it through. When they struck the alien hull, something unexpected happened. The ship wobbled. "Confirmed hit," came the report from HMS Vengeance. "Target is showing signs of damage. Hull integrity appears compromised in sections 7 and 12. Around the world, military commanders listening to the radio chatter felt their hearts race. The aliens could be hurt. But the aliens' response was swift and brutal. Instead of another precise demonstration, this time they opened up with everything they had. Green beams rained down on the British fleet like deadly rain. Within minutes, 6 ships were gone, leaving only empty circles in the ocean where proud vessels had once sailed. Yet even as the British ships died, their sacrifice provided crucial intelligence. The alien beams, for all their devastating power, required charging time between shots. During the engagement, human observers noted a minimum 3-second delay between beam firings from any single ship. 3 seconds didn't sound like much, but to military minds trained in split-second timing, it was an eternity. More importantly, the aliens had revealed something else. When they were threatened, they responded with overwhelming force rather than surgical precision. They were capable of restraint, but when angry, they defaulted to destruction. That told human commanders something vital about alien psychology. They could be provoked into making emotional rather than tactical decisions. Colonel James Harrison, commanding the 82nd Airborne Division, was the first to put this insight to practical use. His forces were positioned outside Washington, D.C., watching the alien ship that hovered over the Capitol like a storm cloud made of metal. "Here's what we're going to do," Harrison told his officers. "We're going to make them mad." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Using every portable missile launcher the division possessed, Harrison's troops began firing at the alien ship. Not all at once, That would be wasteful and easily countered. Instead, they fired in carefully timed sequences, designed to keep the aliens constantly responding to threats. The alien ship's response was exactly what Harrison predicted. Green beams began raining down on the human positions, but the soldiers had already moved. The aliens were firing at empty positions, while Harrison's troops set up in new locations. "Keep them busy," Harrison radioed to his companies. "Make them chase ghosts." For 6 hours, the deadly game of cat and mouse continued. The aliens had overwhelming firepower, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to stay still long enough to be hit effectively. Every time they targeted a human position, the humans had already moved. More importantly, the constant maneuvering and firing was wearing down the alien systems. Each beam fired required energy, and energy had to come from somewhere. Dr. Hawthorne, monitoring the engagement from NORAD, made a discovery that would prove crucial to humanity's eventual victory. "Commander," she called to Sarah, excitement evident in her voice, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations in the alien ships. They're not infinite power sources. The more they fire, the dimmer their overall energy signatures become." Sarah studied the readings. "Are you saying we can drain their batteries?" "In a manner of speaking, yes. Their power systems are incredibly advanced, but they're not unlimited. If we can force them to expend enough energy, they'll become vulnerable." Sarah smiled grimly. "Get me Colonel Harrison on the line." The message went out to every military unit on Earth. Keep the aliens firing. Keep them moving. Keep them angry. Don't try to win through force. Win through endurance. It was a strategy that played to humanity's greatest strength. Not technology, not firepower, but pure, stubborn persistence. The willingness to keep fighting even when outmatched. The aliens, for all their advanced technology, hadn't expected this. They had planned for surrender or glorious last stands. They hadn't planned for an enemy that would simply refuse to quit, that would turn every engagement into a marathon of attrition. As night fell over the embattled Earth, the alien ships continued their deadly rain of green fire. But for the first time since their arrival, they were no longer hunting. They were being hunted, and somewhere in the depths of space, other alien commanders were beginning to wonder if their easy conquest of Earth might not be as easy as they had assumed. The harvest was not going according to plan. Dawn broke over a changed world. 18 hours had passed since the alien ultimatum, and Earth's major cities were scarred with perfect circular holes where the green beams had struck. But something unexpected was happening. The aliens were no longer pressing their attack. Commander Sarah Chen studied the tactical displays in NORAD's war room. Across the globe, alien ships hovered motionless above their target cities, but the devastating beam attacks had stopped. More telling, the energy signatures Dr. Hawthorne was monitoring showed clear signs of depletion. "They're recharging," Dr. Hawthorne reported, her voice carrying a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "All ships show power levels at approximately 60% of initial readings. They need time to restore their energy reserves." Sarah nodded grimly. "Which means Colonel Harrison's strategy worked. How long do we have?" "Based on the power curve analysis, I estimate 6 to 8 hours before they're back to full capacity." 8 hours. It wasn't much, but it was enough for what Sarah had in mind. The communication board lit up with incoming calls from military commanders worldwide. The British had regrouped their remaining naval forces. The Russians were moving armored divisions into position around Moscow. The Chinese had mobilized their entire air force. But Sarah knew scattered resistance wouldn't be enough. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah announced to the assembled world leaders on the secure channel, "we have a window of opportunity. The aliens need time to recharge their primary weapons, but instead of hitting them piecemeal, we need to coordinate a global strike." "What do you propose?" asked General Martinez from the Pentagon. We turn their strength against them. They have superior technology, but they're thinking like an occupying force, not like warriors facing determined resistance. They positioned their ships over our major cities, expecting us to surrender rather than risk civilian casualties. But that positioning also makes them predictable. Sarah pulled up a global map showing all alien ship positions. Every ship is maintaining a static hover pattern exactly 2 kilometers above the city center. No evasive maneuvers, no defensive formations. They're so confident in their superiority that they've forgotten basic military doctrine. The Russian defense minister's voice crackled through the speakers. You want us to attack ships directly over our own cities? The civilian casualties? We'll be far worse if we let them finish recharging, Sarah cut him off. Besides, I'm not talking about nuclear strikes or massive bombardments. I'm talking about precision. Dr. Hawthorne stepped forward. Commander, I've been analyzing the damage patterns from successful hits on the alien ships. Their hull material is incredibly resilient, but it has a weakness. The energy distribution systems create structural stress points every 47 meters along their hulls. If we can target those specific points, we can cause cascading failures, Sarah finished, like cutting the right support cable on a bridge. The plan that emerged over the next 4 hours was audacious in its scope and complexity. Instead of random attacks, human forces would coordinate strikes on specific structural weak points, using intelligence gathered from 18 hours of constant observation and testing. The key insight came from an unexpected source. A 12-year-old girl named Amy Chen, no relation to the commander, in Shanghai, who had been tracking the alien ship movements with a telescope her grandfather had given her. Her observations, relayed through her father who worked for Chinese intelligence, revealed something crucial. The alien ships weren't perfectly stable. They have a micro-oscillation pattern, young Amy had reported through her father. Every 37 seconds, each ship dips exactly 2.3 centimeters, like a breathing pattern. Dr. Hawthorne confirmed Amy's observations through satellite data. The girl is right. The gravitational field generators create a rhythmic fluctuation. For 0.4 seconds, every 37 seconds, their defensive systems are recalibrating. 0.4 seconds. It was barely enough time for a human to blink, but it was enough time for a precisely aimed projectile to reach its target. The first coordinated strike began at 1400 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. In London, a single British sniper named Corporal David Mills lay concealed on the roof of the Shard, the city's tallest building. In his hands was not a conventional rifle, but a railgun prototype that the Royal Marines had been testing in secret. The target was not the entire alien ship, but a single point on its hull. One of the structural weak points Dr. Hawthorne had identified, precisely timed for the moment when the ship's defenses would be recalibrating. "Target acquired," Mills whispered into his radio, waiting for the signal. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. In New York, a team of Navy SEALs had positioned themselves atop the Empire State Building with experimental plasma weaponry. In Tokyo, Japanese Self-Defense Force snipers waited with magnetically accelerated projectiles. In Moscow, Spetsnaz commandos prepared to fire modified anti-tank missiles from the towers of the Kremlin. Each strike was planned to hit within the same 4-second window, exploiting the aliens' assumption that humans couldn't coordinate such precise timing across multiple time zones. "All stations, this is NORAD control," Sarah's voice echoed in the ears of soldiers around the globe. 30 seconds to synchronize strike. Remember, you get one shot. Make it count. The countdown began. In London, Corporal Mills controlled his breathing, his finger resting lightly on the trigger. His target was a spot no larger than a dinner plate, on a ship moving in a predictable but minute oscillation pattern at a range of 2 kilometers. 10 seconds, came Sarah's voice. Mills had been shooting competitively since he was 8 years old. He had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, with confirmed kills at ranges most snipers wouldn't attempt. But this shot would define not just his career, but possibly the fate of his species. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, execute. The railgun fired with a sound like thunder being torn apart. The projectile, a tungsten rod no thicker than a pencil, streaked upward at nearly 3,000 meters per second. Around the world, similar shots rang out in perfect synchronization. Humanity had fired its coordinated response. The results were immediate and spectacular. In London, Mills's projectile struck the alien ship at the precise moment its defenses were recalibrating. Instead of the beam dispersing harmlessly against the hull, the tungsten rod punched through the alien armor like a needle through fabric. The impact triggered exactly the kind of cascading failure Dr. Hawthorne had predicted. The alien ship didn't explode. Instead, it began to fold in on itself, its gravitational generators failing in sequence. The massive vessel, suddenly subject to Earth's gravity without its technological support, fell from the sky like a stone. But the aliens had chosen their positions well. The ship fell directly toward the heart of London, its bulk large enough to devastate everything within a 3-kilometer radius. That was when humanity demonstrated another advantage the aliens hadn't accounted for: the willingness to sacrifice for others. Royal Air Force Pilot Squadron Leader Patricia Walsh was in the air over London when the alien ship began its fatal descent. Her Typhoon fighter jet was loaded with air-to-air missiles meant for a follow-up attack if the initial strike failed. Without hesitation, Walsh turned her aircraft directly toward the falling alien ship. "This is Red Leader," she radioed calmly. "I have visual on the falling target. Initiating collision course." "Red Leader, negative. Break off. Break off." "Sorry, Control. Too many people down there." Walsh flew her fighter directly into the alien ship's control section, using her aircraft as a guided missile to alter the massive vessel's trajectory. Her sacrifice sent the alien ship tumbling away from the city center, where it crashed into the Thames River instead of into millions of innocent civilians. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, a Japanese pilot made the same choice, steering his aircraft into a falling alien ship to protect the city below. In Moscow, a helicopter pilot flew directly into an alien vessel's engine section, sacrificing himself to save Red Square. But not every strike required such ultimate sacrifice. In New York, the SEAL team's plasma weapons created a different kind of failure in their target ship. Instead of falling, the alien vessel began spinning slowly, its navigation systems damaged. The ship drifted out over the Atlantic Ocean, where it finally crashed harmlessly into deep water. In Beijing, Chinese forces had prepared for the possibility of a falling ship by evacuating a specific corridor of the city and using precisely placed demolition charges to guide the alien vessel's fall into an area where it would cause minimal damage. The first coordinated strike had succeeded beyond all expectations. Of the 37 alien ships that had arrived to harvest Earth, 12 had been destroyed or disabled. More importantly, humanity had proven something the aliens clearly hadn't expected. Humans could think tactically under pressure. But the aliens were quick learners. The remaining 25 ships immediately changed their behavior patterns. They abandoned their static positions over city centers, rising to higher altitudes and beginning evasive maneuver patterns that eliminated the micro-oscillations human snipers had exploited. Moreover, the aliens began their retaliation. The attack came not as green beams fired from above, but as something far more terrifying: ground forces. Ships began landing outside major cities, disgorging creatures that defied easy description. They moved like liquid metal given form, shifting and flowing while maintaining roughly humanoid shapes. Each stood nearly 3 meters tall, with appendages that could reshape themselves into weapons, tools, or additional limbs as needed. These were the Harvesters, the aliens' ground troops designed for close-quarters combat and population control. The first human contact with Harvester ground forces occurred outside Berlin, where a German mechanized infantry unit found themselves facing an enemy unlike anything in their training manuals. Hauptmann Klaus Weber watched through his binoculars as the alien forms flowed across the landscape toward his positions. His company had taken cover in a forest outside the city, hoping to ambush the aliens as they advanced. "Panzerfaust teams, prepare for engagement," Weber ordered. "Target the largest concentrations." The first anti-tank rockets streaked toward the advancing aliens. The Harvester's response was immediate and disturbing. Instead of being destroyed by the explosions, they simply flowed around the blast zones like water around stones, reforming on the other side completely undamaged. "Scheisse," one of Weber's sergeants muttered. "How do you kill something that can't be blown up?" The answer came from an unlikely source. Private Maria Santos, a combat engineer who had grown up helping her father in his auto repair shop, made an observation that would change human tactics against the Harvesters. "Sir," she called to Weber, "they're not invulnerable. Look at how they move. They're avoiding the burning wreckage from our rocket hits. I think they don't like heat." Weber studied the battlefield through his field glasses. Santos was right. The Harvesters were moving around areas where fuel and ammunition were burning, maintaining a careful distance from the flames. "All units," Weber radioed, "switch to incendiary rounds. Cook these bastards." The change in ammunition type transformed the engagement completely. Where conventional explosives had been ineffective, white phosphorus and napalm rounds caused the Harvesters to recoil and retreat. The liquid metal that comprised their bodies seemed unable to maintain cohesion when subjected to extreme heat. More importantly, the aliens appeared to feel pain. When struck by incendiary weapons, the Harvesters emitted sounds that could only be described as screams, high-pitched wails that spoke of genuine suffering. Word of the German discovery spread rapidly through military communication networks. Within hours, human forces worldwide were adapting their tactics, switching to flame-based weapons and incendiary ammunition. The tide of ground combat began to turn in humanity's favor. But the aliens had one more surprise waiting. As human forces celebrated their tactical breakthrough against the Harvesters, alien ships in orbit began dropping something new toward Earth's surface. Not troops, not weapons, but devices that looked like metallic flowers blooming in reverse. Dr. Hawthorne identified them first. "Commander, those objects are releasing some kind of atmospheric contaminant. Initial readings suggest it's designed to affect human nervous systems." "Poison gas?" Sarah asked. "Worse. It appears to be a fear enhancer, a chemical compound designed to trigger panic responses in human brain chemistry. They're trying to break our will to fight." But once again, the aliens had underestimated human adaptability. The compound they released was indeed designed to trigger fear responses, but it was calibrated for baseline human psychology. It didn't account for the psychological conditioning of professional soldiers or for humanity's ability to function under extreme stress. More importantly, it didn't account for human stubbornness. Master Sergeant Rita Jackson, leading a squad of U.S. Marines outside Washington, D.C., felt the alien fear compound wash over her positions like a wave of pure terror. For a moment, her hands shook and her heart raced as primal fear tried to overwhelm her training. Then she remembered something her drill instructor had told her 15 years ago. "Fear is just another enemy soldier, Marine. You don't negotiate with enemy soldiers. You kill them." "Listen up, Marines," Jackson called to her squad, her voice steady despite the chemical terror flooding her system. "Whatever these alien bastards are pumping into the air, it's just trying to make us scared. But we're Marines. We don't do scared. We do angry. And right now, I'm very, very angry." Her squad responded with a chorus of "Oorah!" that echoed across the battlefield. The fear compound continued to affect human forces, but not in the way the aliens expected. Instead of breaking human will to fight, it made human soldiers fight with a desperate intensity that bordered on feral. Troops who might have retreated under normal circumstances now held their ground with suicidal determination. As the second day of the war drew to a close, both sides had learned hard lessons about their enemies. The aliens had discovered that humans were far more tactically flexible and psychologically resilient than their intelligence had suggested. But humanity had learned something even more important. The aliens could be defeated. Their technology was advanced, but not invincible. Their tactics were sophisticated, but not perfect. Most importantly, humanity had learned that when faced with extinction, humans didn't surrender. They got angry. And angry humans were very dangerous indeed. The third day of the war began with humanity doing something the aliens never expected, attacking first. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the NORAD command center, watching tactical displays that showed human forces advancing on alien positions across 6 continents. What had started as a desperate defense had transformed into a coordinated global offensive. "All units report ready," Sergeant Williams announced. "Operation Hornet's Nest is a go." The plan was audacious, even by human standards. Instead of waiting for the aliens to dictate the terms of engagement, Earth's military forces would simultaneously attack every known alien position using tactics specifically designed to exploit everything humanity had learned over the past 48 hours. The operation's name came from General Patricia Hayes, the Pentagon's chief strategic planner, who had observed something crucial about alien behavior. They react to threats like someone who's kicked a hornet's nest. Lots of immediate violent activity, but no long-term planning. They're tactically reactive, not strategically proactive. This insight had led to a radical shift in human strategy. Instead of fighting the war the aliens expected, desperate humans defending their cities, humanity would fight the war on their own terms. The first phase began in orbit. Lieutenant Colonel Susan Park, commanding the International Space Station's hastily assembled weapons platform, watched through her viewport as 12 human spacecraft approached alien vessels in high orbit. These weren't traditional military craft, but converted civilian vessels, cargo ships, communication satellites, and even a lunar mining platform, all armed with experimental weapons designed by the world's best military engineers, working around the clock. "ISS to all orbital strike units," Park radioed. "Remember, we're not trying to win a space battle. We're trying to make them angry enough to make mistakes." The human spacecraft opened fire with everything they had. Particle beam weapons reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. Kinetic kill vehicles that were essentially guided meteors. Even modified nuclear warheads reconfigured as electromagnetic pulse generators. The alien response was exactly what human strategists had hoped for. Overwhelming retaliation with no tactical consideration. Green beams lashed out from alien ships, destroying most of the human spacecraft within minutes. But those few minutes were exactly what the ground forces needed. As the aliens focused their attention skyward, human forces struck simultaneously across the globe. Not at the hovering ships. Those had learned to stay mobile and defensive after the first coordinated strike, but at the ground installations the aliens had established. In the Australian outback, Captain James Morrison led a joint U.S.-Australian force against an alien staging area. The enemies had landed to establish what appeared to be a processing facility for captured humans. Morrison's intelligence suggested they were planning to start the harvest phase of their invasion. "Remember, lads," Morrison told his mixed force of Green Berets and SAS commandos, "these bastards think they're apex predators. Time to show them what real predators look like." The assault began with something the aliens had never encountered: human psychological warfare. Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, a U.S. Army psychological operations specialist, had spent 2 days studying alien communication frequencies. As Morrison's force approached the alien facility, Rodriguez began broadcasting on those frequencies. But instead of attempting communication, she transmitted the sounds of human warfare, the screams of attacking soldiers, the roar of explosions, the thunder of advancing tanks. Mixed in were recorded alien death cries from previous battles, played back at amplified volume. The effect on the harvesters was immediate and profound. The liquid metal beings began displaying behavior patterns that could only be described as panic. They clustered together in defensive formations, their usual fluid coordination breaking down into chaotic defensive postures. Psychological warfare works on aliens too, Rodriguez reported with grim satisfaction. Fear is apparently universal. Morrison's assault team hit the panicked harvesters with concentrated incendiary fire from 6 different directions simultaneously. But this time, they weren't just using white phosphorus and napalm. Human engineers had been busy. The new weapons were based on thermite reactions that burned at temperatures exceeding 2,500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt steel, and more than hot enough to disrupt whatever quantum processes kept the harvesters' liquid metal forms coherent. The aliens didn't just retreat. They disintegrated, their forms losing cohesion and splattering across the landscape like molten silver. "Target facility secure," Morrison reported. "And we've recovered something interesting." What Morrison's team had found would change the entire strategic situation. The alien facility contained human prisoners, but more importantly, it contained alien technology that was still active and accessible. Dr. Lisa Kumar, a xenobiologist who had been flown in from MIT, spent 3 hours examining the alien equipment before making a discovery that sent shockwaves through human command structures worldwide. "Commander Chen," Kumar reported via secure satellite link, "these aliens aren't the apex predators they pretend to be. Based on their technology and the facility design, I believe they're actually a client species working for someone else." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "Are you saying there are worse aliens coming?" "No, ma'am. I'm saying these aliens are essentially space pirates. Advanced ones, but pirates nonetheless. They raid primitive worlds for slave labor, which they sell to other alien civilizations. Earth isn't facing an invasion. We're facing a raiding party." The implications were staggering. If these aliens were just raiders, then they weren't backed by the full military might of an interstellar empire. They were essentially a criminal gang with advanced technology. More importantly, Kumar's analysis suggested the aliens had a home base, a mothership hidden somewhere in the outer solar system where they processed captured slaves and stored their wealth. "If we can find their base ship," Sarah mused, "we can end this war permanently." The hunt for the alien base began immediately. Every radio telescope on Earth started scanning for the specific energy signatures Kumar had identified from the captured alien technology. Deep space monitoring stations that normally tracked asteroids and comets began looking for artificial objects in the outer system. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: amateur radio operators. Harold Finch was a 73-year-old retired electronics engineer who ran a hobby radio station from his basement in Kansas. Like thousands of other ham radio operators worldwide, Harold had been asked to help listen for alien transmissions. What Harold found wasn't transmissions. It was dead air. "There's a spot in space where all the radio noise stops," Harold reported to NORAD, "about 15 degrees off the constellation Orion, roughly 4 AU from Earth. It's like there's something out there absorbing all radio waves." Dr. Kumar confirmed Harold's observation within hours. "That's not natural. Something massive is using active stealth technology to hide from our sensors. Something the size of a small moon." The alien base had been found. But attacking a fortress in space was beyond human capabilities. Or so it seemed until Captain Rebecca Singh, commander of the experimental spacecraft USS Prometheus, proposed something that sounded like pure suicide. "We don't need to destroy their base," Singh told the assembled world leaders during an emergency video conference. "We just need to threaten it credibly enough to force them to withdraw." Singh's plan was breathtakingly simple. Load the Prometheus with every nuclear warhead humanity could spare, fly it to the alien base, and threaten to detonate everything unless the aliens withdrew from Earth. "Captain," the president said carefully, "you're talking about a one-way trip." Yes, sir. But if it saves Earth, that's a trade I'm willing to make. The mission launched 18 hours later. The Prometheus, now carrying enough nuclear firepower to crack a small moon, began its journey to the outer solar system. But Singh wasn't flying alone. She had volunteers from 12 different nations, all willing to sacrifice their lives to save their homeworld. As the Prometheus flew toward its target, the war on Earth entered its final phase. The remaining alien ships, apparently receiving reports of the threat to their base, abandoned their careful defensive postures and launched an all-out assault on human positions. It was exactly the mistake human strategists had been hoping for. Angry aliens, it turned out, were tactically incompetent aliens. The Harvesters attacked in massive waves, abandoning their hit-and-run tactics for direct frontal assaults. Human forces, dug in and prepared, met them with coordinated fields of fire that turned the battlefield into furnaces. In New York, Colonel Martinez watched wave after wave of liquid metal aliens charge directly into carefully prepared kill zones. "They're fighting like they're angry instead of like they're soldiers," he observed. "Makes our job easier." Above the battle, alien ships fired their green beams in seemingly random patterns, trying to provide support for their ground forces but hitting empty positions that humans had already abandoned. "They've lost their tactical discipline," reported General Hayes from the Pentagon. "Rage has made them stupid." But the decisive moment came when Captain Singh reached the alien base. The thing was massive, easily 50 kilometers long and shaped like a giant metal tree, its branches extending in all directions. It was beautiful in an alien way, clearly designed by minds that thought differently about architecture and engineering. "Prometheus to NORAD," Singh radioed, her transmission taking 47 minutes to reach Earth. "I have visual confirmation of the target. Beginning final approach." Singh's ship approached the alien base slowly, making no attempt at stealth. She wanted the aliens to see her coming, to understand exactly what was about to happen. The alien response was immediate. Defense systems activated around the base, targeting the small human ship with weapons that could have vaporized it instantly. But they didn't fire. "Prometheus, we're receiving a transmission," Singh's communications officer reported. "They want to talk." The alien voice that came through the speakers was different from the earlier ultimatum. This one sounded almost tired. "Human vessel, you carry weapons of mass destruction. We understand your intent. This is unnecessary." Singh keyed her microphone. "Then withdraw from Earth. All ships, all forces. Leave our system and never return. This is acceptable. We have underestimated your species' tactical capabilities and willingness to sacrifice. You are not suitable for harvesting. We will find easier prey elsewhere." "Not good enough," Singh replied firmly. "I want guarantees. I want you to broadcast a message to every alien civilization within 50 light years, telling them that Earth is under human protection and that any attempt to raid our system will be met with extreme prejudice." There was a long pause. Then, "This is also acceptable. You fight like warriors, not like prey. We will inform the Commerce Guild that your system is to be marked as a protected military zone." The Commerce Guild. Even in her moment of triumph, Singh felt a chill at the implications. How many other alien civilizations were out there, treating primitive species like livestock? But that was a problem for another day. "Transmission sent," the alien voice reported. "All forces are withdrawing from your system. We will not return." On Earth, the effects were immediate. Alien ships began rising from their positions around major cities, their harvester ground forces flowing back aboard like liquid metal rivers running uphill. Within 6 hours, Earth's skies were clear. The war was over. Humanity had won. But as Commander Sarah Chen stood in the NORAD command center, watching the last alien ship disappear into deep space, she knew this was just the beginning. "Dr. Hawthorne," she said quietly. "I want you to start analyzing everything we captured from the aliens, every piece of technology, every scrap of intelligence." "What are we looking for?" Hawthorne asked. "Everything." "Because this Commerce Guild isn't going away, and now they know we exist. Other raids might be ruled out, but eventually, someone's going to decide that Earth needs to be dealt with permanently." Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing human military units securing former alien positions worldwide. 3 days ago, humanity had been a pre-spaceflight civilization thinking they were alone in the universe. Now they were a recognized military power in an interstellar community that viewed primitive worlds as resources to be exploited. "Williams," she called to her communications officer, "get me the president, and then get me every world leader on the planet. We need to talk about Earth's defense policy for the next century." As Sarah began planning humanity's future as a spacefaring military power, one thought dominated her mind. The aliens had made a critical mistake when they chose to attack Earth. They had expected to find prey. Instead, they had awakened predators. And now those predators knew they weren't alone in a hostile universe. The harvest was over. The hunt was just beginning.